Hello everybody, this is Yasmeen from Yarkspiri fantasyart.com. Today I'm actually going to be working on a traditional drawing, something you haven't seen me do too often. Actually not at all, considering you've only seen my digital work. My background is traditional, however, so I do quite a few traditional drawings when I'm trying to figure out a drawing or I'm trying to do anatomy studies. Now, anatomy studies is something that I do find very interesting. Special bone anatomy and muscle anatomy. So whenever I have time, I do try to work on those skills because understanding those fundamentals really does help my overall drawing skill. Now I do find when it comes to anatomy studies, I do find that it's a lot faster to do an anatomy study traditionally and more accurately than it is for me to do it digitally. Now that is personal preference, and it is because I have done an extensive amount using traditional mediums, so I am more comfortable using those mediums when it comes to these. However, it is a personal preference. If you do anatomy studies and you start off digitally, then you may find it a lot easier to do digitally than you do traditionally. This does bring me to a very important topic, however. I don't think it's digital mediums versus traditional mediums are really any different compared to each other. There's different tools that you're using, yes. However, the end result tends to be just a different style of drawing. So depending on what style you prefer, either one will work. A lot of the skills that I learned from my traditional drawings, I was able to later on apply directly to my digital drawings. All the anatomy study techniques that I learned for drawing the muscles, those all were pretty much the same techniques that I used for the digital medias, and vice versa. So a lot of techniques that I learned using layers and all that, I do apply in my traditional mediums as well. You can't see the pegboard per se that I have attached to my light table, but I do have a pegboard that's attached. And what that allows me to do is use animation paper and put it layer by layer on top of each other, and then turn on the light table if I have to, if I'm doing cleanup. That's a very useful tool. It's not a necessary tool, however, but it is one of my preferred working techniques. Now, I'm not a cleanup artist per se, so a good cleanup artist wouldn't actually need to do that. They're normally able to flip and draw and work from that. I do try to do that, but if I'm under time constraints, I can't really afford to do that. So for this reason, you'll see me flipping a little bit, and because it is fast forward, it might be a little fast for you to see what I'm actually doing. But I'm actually rolling the paper between my fingers in order to get that flipping motion, in order for me to flip back to the drawing where I have my rough line art, and then flip back to my cleanup that I'm currently working on. What that does is you tend to retain a small amount of information that's actually there on the underneath drawing when you flip back, and you're able to then add a very clean line. Now, once again, because of time restraints, don't see me doing that too often in this video per se, but it is something I'm very keen to use, especially when I'm doing some traditional animation. I don't do traditional animation as much as I used to. Very limited at the moment. Mainly because I don't have the proper facilities for it. I don't have proper scanners and all that. But I do enjoy cleaning up my drawings, which you're currently seeing me do. Now, I'm just using really basic tools here. I'm just using a 0.3 pencil. You can normally find that at any art store would have it. It's a fairly decently priced pencil. It's not a necessity, but it does allow me to get finer lines, which is why I'm actually using it in this case. I can get a finer amount of detail, a much cleaner and crisper line, which is the reason why I use it. And because it is a mechanical pencil, I'm not forced to sharpen my pencil as much. Well, if at all. When you're using a mechanical pencil, you can actually just turn the pencil itself to the point that you need and get a fine line as well. And that's what I'll typically do if I'm drawing and cleaning up a drawing. Now this isn't a perfect cleanup because it doesn't have line weight associated to it. It has a tiny bit, but not too much. This is more, it's close to cleanup, but it's not a finalized cleanup drawing. Like I said, if it was a finalized cleanup, I would have added line weight, especially in the bottom areas or any areas that I want to have popping out from the rest of the body. Now, another reason why I use a mechanical pencil, once again, is personal preference. It's because I don't have to sharpen it. If I'm doing any sort of cleanup, I have to constantly sharpen my pencil, because the moment you lose that point, it compromises your line. And I like to have really nice crisp lines, so because of that, I do use, once again, mechanical pencil. It is faster for me, a little bit more efficient. I have tried using both techniques. However, when I tend to scan the image, there's actually I've actually had problems figuring out which one was a cleanup. I've done a lot of my rough work with mechanical pencil in the past, especially with layouts. And when I photocopied them, unfortunately, I couldn't tell the difference between the two. And once again, that's just because of the way I draw. I tend to draw very clean, especially when I'm using mechanical pencil, because you can't really see my rough line art that I'm working on. Although it's there, it just doesn't show up on a scanner all the time, especially once I adjust the contrast levels, or especially a photocopier machine. It just doesn't show up. So for that reason, I actually don't normally bother doing a full cleanup drawing, just because in most cases, you can't tell which one is a cleanup drawing, in my case, in particular. So I'm not just going to do the side view in this video for the skull. I'm going to do both the side view and the front view. I am going to skip the rough drawing section for the front view, however. And that's simply because of time restraints, because I did show it to you roughly with the side of the skull, which has a far larger amount of detail overall. But I will skip forward to the cleanup version, or the cleanup process for the front view. Now, one more thing about cleanup. Normally, when I'm doing an actual cleanup drawing, I will normally use a non-photo blue pencil. This non-photo blue pencil does not normally show up in a scanner or even in a printer. It won't show up as long as you don't draw too hard. It's a very useful pencil, depending on what you're doing. So if I'm doing a lot of technical drawings and I need to be spot on my structure, I need to be able to follow the structure from drawing to drawing, I will definitely use a non-photo blue first, and I will avoid actually using the light table. I will turn it off normally and exclusively use flipping techniques. That's actually the technique. You'll see me flipping between the two drawings, and you've seen me a couple times already in this video, where the page rolls over in front and back to the page behind it. What I'm doing is I'm rolling the page between my fingers. This allows me to see what my original drawing was and make sure that the structure is correct. Even though I have the light table, there's a lot of information that is lost when the light table turns on. Just because some of my lines are just not dark enough, so they just don't show up properly. So for this reason, I do have to flip between the current page I'm working on and the previous drawing that I had. You will also notice too that I tend to work mostly left to right. That's another cleanup technique that I picked up in school. It helps prevent you from actually smudging your drawing as you're drawing it. There's several different ways to prevent smudging your piece, but that tends to be the most efficient, is just to avoid drawing on it. Once again, although I had the basic structure figured out in the bottom, I'm adding the finalized details that actually make this a good drawing structurally and accurate drawing. Now, there was a couple reasons why I decided to do a skull anatomy drawing for this video. The first one was because I was actually going to draw my first zombie drawing, which is actually posted on the main website for you guys to look at. I didn't want to do a speed bead painting video of that one simply because certain people do take offense to those drawings, and I don't want to alienate perhaps younger people from my videos, because they will help them in school, especially for the arts. So for this reason, I decided not to do a speed painting video of that image. But I am showing you some of the studies that are required in order to get a very good overall drawing, especially one that does require a lot of anatomy knowledge. Drawing zombies, or in this case the one zombie that I did draw, it was something different. I wasn't used to drawing that, but I had to be comfortable with the human anatomy in order to be able to draw it. So I did have to understand how the skull was structured properly in order to be able to draw it on different angles. So for this reason, I did do a skull anatomy drawing for this video. Okay, and this is the finalized two drawings. What I did is I brought both of these drawings into Photoshop and just added a couple of highlights to the overall drawing. So I hope you guys found this very educational, and I hope you guys tune in next week for my next video. Thank you and take care.